Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. People always ask if there were signs. Looking back, maybe there were. But nothing prepared me for hearing my own wife say the words that ended our marriage. My name is Larry, and Mia and I had been married for almost 4 years. A few months before everything fell apart, she kept talking about how exhausted she was. Her job had been stressful, and one of her friends suggested a girls' trip through Europe. I didn't argue. "You should go," I told her. "Take a week. Come back recharged." She smiled, kissed me, and said, "You're the best." Before she left, we'd started turning one of the spare bedrooms into a home office she'd always wanted. I had already painted the walls and ordered the furniture. While she was away, I planned to finish everything myself so she'd come home to a surprise. The first few days went exactly how I expected. She sent photos of old streets, cafes, museums, and dinners with her friends. I spent my evenings putting together shelves, building her desk, hanging artwork, and running cable behind the walls so nothing would show. It was coming together better than I imagined. On the third evening, just as I finished installing the last bookshelf, my phone rang. It was Mia. I wiped the dust off my hands and answered with a smile. "Hey, looks like you're having fun." She wasn't smiling. Behind her, I could see city lights and people eating dinner on a rooftop terrace. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. My stomach tightened. "Sure." She looked away for a second before taking a deep breath. "There's someone else." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I met someone while traveling. We're in a situationship." For a second, I honestly thought I'd heard her wrong. I stared at the screen. "While you're still my wife?" She nodded slowly. "It's complicated." I let out one short laugh. "No." "What? It's not complicated anymore." She blinked. "Larry, please just let me explain." "You already did. I still love you. You don't do this to someone you love. It just happened." "No," I said firmly. "You made it happen." She rubbed her forehead. "I thought we'd talk about everything when I got home." "There won't be anything to talk about." "What are you saying?" "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning." Her eyes went wide. "You're serious?" "Completely. You can't make a decision like this over one conversation. I can make it over one confession." "Larry, I hope your trip was worth it." I ended the call before she could answer. The house went completely silent. I looked toward the nearly finished office. An hour earlier, I'd been adjusting the chair she wanted. Now I walked inside, took the framed photo of us off the new desk, set it face down in a box, turned off the light, and closed the door. The next morning, before I went anywhere else, I drove straight to a divorce attorney's office. After listening to everything that had happened, he leaned back in his chair and asked, "Just to be clear, she admitted she started a relationship with another man while she was still married to you?" Her exact words were, "I met someone while traveling. We're in a situationship." He nodded once. "Then you're making the right decision. We can start the paperwork today." I signed every document he placed in front of me. There wasn't much to debate. No kids, a house we'd bought together 2 years earlier, separate retirement accounts, a joint checking account. Everything else could be handled through the divorce. Before leaving, he gave me one piece of advice. "Don't make emotional decisions. Don't throw her out. Don't destroy her belongings. Keep everything clean and documented." I wasn't planning on doing anything stupid. Good. The calmer person usually wins. I drove straight home. The surprise office stayed exactly as it was, except I carried the framed photo of us into a closet. Then I started organizing the rest of the house. I moved all of Mia's clothes into the downstairs guest room. Her makeup, her books, her laptop charger, everything. Not to punish her, to make it clear that when she came home, our marriage would already be over. Next came the finances. I opened a new personal checking account, transferred my paycheck deposits, canceled the automatic transfer into our vacation savings, printed statements for every joint account, made copies of the mortgage paperwork. Then I locked every document inside my home office. By late afternoon, my phone started buzzing again. Mia. I let it ring twice before answering. "Have you calmed down?" she asked. "No." I barely slept. I slept fine. "Larry, we're throwing away 4 years." "No, you did that yesterday." "It wasn't an affair." "What would you call dating another man while married?" Silence. "I told you, it's complicated." "I don't care what word you use. The meaning doesn't change." She sighed. "Can we at least wait until I get home?" "You can come home. The marriage won't." Before she could answer, I ended the call. About an hour later, another number appeared on my screen. I answered. "Hi, Larry. It's Claire, Mia's older sister." I figured. She's a mess. I imagine she is. "You really filed?" "This morning. You don't think that's extreme?" "I think cheating on your spouse while sightseeing in Europe is extreme." Claire hesitated. Mia said she got confused. Confused people ask questions. What does that mean? They don't start relationships. Another long silence. Finally, she said, "You two owe it to yourselves to have one conversation before lawyers get involved." They already are. "Larry, I didn't end this marriage, Claire." She didn't answer. A second later, the call disconnected. The next day, my attorney emailed me the completed divorce petition. Mia still had 2 days left before her flight home. By then, every page waiting for her signature was already sitting in a folder on our kitchen table. Mia came home on a Saturday afternoon. I heard the taxi pull into the driveway before I saw it. I opened the front door just as she stepped onto the porch, rolling a large suitcase behind her. She smiled for half a second like she expected an awkward hug. Then she noticed the folder in my hand. The smile disappeared. "You actually did it. I told you I would." She walked inside without waiting for an invitation. The house looked exactly as she'd left it, except one thing. Her purse, shoes, and jacket weren't by the front door anymore. She looked around. "Where's my stuff?" "Guest room." "What?" "I moved everything in there." She stared at me. "You moved me into the guest room?" "My attorney advised me not to force you out before we sort everything legally." "So your lawyer is already telling you how to treat your wife?" "My lawyer is helping me divorce my wife." She looked away for a second before setting down her suitcase. "Larry, can we just sit down?" "We are sitting." I took a seat at the kitchen table. The divorce papers were already waiting between us. She didn't touch them. Instead, she looked at me with tired eyes. "I never wanted this. You should have thought about that before you found another man. I told you, it wasn't like that. You called it a situationship. I met someone I connected with. You pursued someone you connected with. I didn't sleep with him." I held her gaze. "Are you asking me to be grateful?" Her mouth opened, then closed again. I was confused. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." "No," I said calmly. "You were curious." She shook her head. "You don't understand." "Then explain." She took a deep breath. "I met him the first day of the trip. We kept running into each other. We'd have coffee, talk for hours, walk around the city." I interrupted. "So you went on dates." "They weren't dates. They sound exactly like dates. It wasn't planned. It never is." Her voice became sharper. "I came home, didn't I?" I leaned forward. "You came home after spending a week building a relationship with another man. I chose you." "No." I shook my head once. "You chose him first. You only came back because your return flight was already booked." Tears filled her eyes. "So that's it? That's it? 4 years together and you won't even fight for us?" "I am." She frowned. "What?" "I'm fighting for the part of me that still has self-respect." Silence settled between us. Finally, she looked at the papers. "You really expect me to sign these today?" "No, I won't. You don't have to." She looked relieved for a moment. Then I finished. "But this divorce is happening whether you sign today or 6 months from now." Her expression hardened. "I think you're making the biggest mistake of your life." I stood up and picked up her suitcase. "No." I carried it to the guest room and opened the door. "The biggest mistake of my life would have been pretending your confession never happened." She stood in the hallway without moving. Then she quietly asked, "Do you even love me anymore?" I looked at her for a long moment before answering. "I loved the woman I married." I stepped back from the doorway. "I don't know the one who came home from Europe." The next morning, I left early for work. When I got home that evening, Mia was sitting alone at the kitchen table. The divorce papers were still exactly where I'd left them, untouched. She looked up as I walked in. "I made dinner." "I already ate." "Larry." I kept walking. "We need to figure out what happens next." "I already have." She followed me into the living room. "You won't even try counseling?" "No." "What about one session?" "No." "Why?" "Because counseling is for fixing problems inside a marriage." She frowned. "This happened inside our marriage." "No, it happened outside of it." Before she could answer, the doorbell rang. Mia looked surprised. "I didn't invite anyone." Neither had I. When I opened the door, her parents were standing there. Richard Bennett looked exhausted. His wife, Susan Bennett, looked furious. Susan pushed past me. "I cannot believe you're doing this." Richard closed the door quietly behind him. "Larry," he said, "can we all just sit down? I've got nothing to hide." We gathered around the dining table. Susan spoke first. "Mia told us you're divorcing her over one conversation." "I'm divorcing her because she started seeing another man." Mia immediately jumped in. "It wasn't serious." I looked at her. "Tell them exactly what you told me." She stayed silent. Susan frowned. "What did she say?" I answered for her. "She called me from Europe and said, 'I met someone while traveling. We're in a situationship.'" The room went completely quiet. Richard slowly turned toward his daughter. "Mia." She looked down. "It's more complicated than that." He asked one simple question. "Were you still married when you started seeing him?" Another long silence. Finally, "Yes." Susan looked shocked. "I thought you said you just became close friends." "We were." I shook my head. "Friends don't usually hide conversations from their spouses." Richard folded his arms. "Did this man know you were married?" Mia? I told him things were basically over." I couldn't help smiling. "So you lied to both of us." "Larry," Susan snapped, "this isn't helping." "No," I said calmly. "The lies are what got us here." Richard stood up. "I need some air." He walked outside without another word. Susan looked at Mia with disappointment instead of anger now. "Why didn't you tell us the whole truth? I didn't think you'd understand." "You didn't give us the chance." She quietly followed her husband outside. Mia glared at me. "You embarrassed me." I repeated your own words. "You knew how they'd react." I honestly didn't. She crossed her arms. "I hate what you've become." I looked at her for a second. "No!" I grabbed my keys. "You hate that your choices finally have an audience." I left before she could answer. About an hour later, while I was sitting alone at a coffee shop, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it. Instead, I answered. A nervous male voice came through. Is this Larry?" "It is." "My name's Jake." I didn't recognize it. Then he said something that made me stop stirring my coffee. "I think I'm the guy your wife met in Europe." He sighed heavily. "And I think she lied to both of us." I didn't say anything for a few seconds. Finally, I asked, "How did you get my number?" "She left her tablet at my apartment." That wasn't the answer I expected. "I mailed it back to her yesterday," Jake continued. "I picked it up to package it, and a bunch of notifications popped up on the lock screen. Your name kept showing up. Husband, home." I leaned back in my chair. "So, now you know." "Yeah." His voice sounded more embarrassed than angry. "She told me she'd been separated for almost a year." I let out a quiet breath. "I figured." "I didn't." He paused before continuing. "When she landed back home, she called me crying. Said her husband overreacted after she was honest." "Convenient version." "Exactly. What changed?" I asked why she'd have a husband if she'd been separated for a year. And there wasn't a good answer. I wasn't surprised. I ended things right there. "Smart. I also thought you deserved to know something." "What?" "I still have all our messages." That got my attention. "What kind of messages?" "The kind where she talks about waiting until she got home before telling you." He hesitated. "And the kind where she says she didn't want to leave her marriage until she knew we had a future." I closed my eyes for a second. So I was the backup plan. "I'm afraid so." A notification appeared on my phone, several screenshots. I opened the first one. One message from Mia read, "Larry is dependable, but I don't know if he's the person I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with. I need to see where this goes first." Another said, "I can't end things too early. If this doesn't work out, I need somewhere stable to go back to." I stared at the screen without saying a word. Jake finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry, man. Were you two sleeping together?" "No." "You sure?" "Positive." I ended it before it got there. I believed him. Not because I trusted him. Because if he'd wanted to lie, he would have done it the first time. "Why send me these?" "Because she lied to both of us." He sighed. "And honestly, I don't like being someone's backup any more than you do." "I appreciate it. Do whatever you need with them." "I will." After we hung up, I forwarded every screenshot to my attorney. He called me less than 30 minutes later. "Don't post these anywhere," he said. "I wasn't planning to." "Good. But save everything. If she starts claiming you ended the marriage for no reason or tries to paint a different picture during negotiations, this completely destroys that narrative." When I got home that evening, Mia was sitting on the back patio. She looked up. "Where have you been?" "Out." "Doing what?" I stopped beside the chair. "I got a call today." She frowned. "From who?" I held up my phone. "The man from Europe." Every bit of color drained from her face. "You talked to Jake?" I did. She stood so fast, the chair tipped over behind her. "He had no right to call you." "No." I slipped the phone back into my pocket. "The person with no right was the one who lied to both of us." Mia stared at me for several seconds. Finally, she asked, "What did he tell you?" "The truth." She looked away. "I don't know what he showed you." "I do." I walked past her into the house. She followed me. "Larry, listen to me." "I've done enough listening." "It wasn't how it looks." I stopped in the hallway. "Then tell me how a message saying you wanted to keep me until you were sure about him is supposed to look." She froze. For the first time since she'd come home, she didn't have an answer ready. "You read that?" "I read all of it." Her shoulders dropped. "I was scared." "No, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly." She covered her face with both hands. "I didn't know what I wanted." "You knew exactly what you wanted." She looked at me. "You wanted two options." Silence. "You wanted me paying half the mortgage while you figured out if another man was a better deal." She whispered. "It wasn't like that." "It was exactly like that." She didn't argue, because she couldn't. The next week was nothing but meetings between attorneys. The process stayed surprisingly civil. There were arguments over the house, savings, and furniture, but nothing outrageous. Then Mia changed attorneys. The new one came in aggressively. They demanded the house be sold immediately and claimed Mia deserved a larger share because she had sacrificed career opportunities during the marriage. My attorney laughed after reading it. "What? They're negotiating with emotion instead of facts." So? "So they're going to lose." Over the next month, every financial document was exchanged. Pay stubs, tax returns, mortgage records, retirement accounts, everything. The numbers spoke for themselves. There was nothing to support the claims. A week later, Mia's attorney requested mediation instead. My attorney smiled. "They're backing down." The mediation lasted almost 6 hours. Most of it was waiting in separate rooms while the attorneys went back and forth. Near the end, Mia asked if we could speak privately. Against my attorney's advice, I agreed. We stood alone in an empty conference room. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. No makeup, no anger, just regret. "I never thought it would end like this." "It ended the day you started another relationship." She shook her head. "I wish I could take it back." "You can't." "I've lost everything." I looked at her calmly. "No," she frowned. "You gave everything away." Tears filled her eyes. "I loved you. I believe you." She looked surprised. "You do?" "I believe you loved me." I paused. "But not enough." She started crying. "I don't expect forgiveness." "That's good. Can we at least be friends someday?" I looked at her for a long moment. Then I answered honestly. "No." She nodded slowly. I figured. I opened the conference room door. "Our lawyers are waiting." That was the last real conversation we ever had. 3 months later, the divorce became official. There was no courtroom fight, no dramatic speeches, no last-minute change of heart. The judge signed the paperwork, wished us both luck, and moved on to the next case. Just like that, 4 years of marriage became a stack of legal documents. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in months. Not happy, just finished. Mia moved into a small apartment across town. I heard through mutual friends that she'd changed jobs and was trying to rebuild her life. I genuinely hoped she did. Just without me. A few people stopped talking to me after the divorce. They believed the version where I was too cold, too quick, too unwilling to forgive. The people who actually knew me stayed. That was enough. The spare bedroom eventually became exactly what I'd planned from the beginning. Only now it wasn't Mia's office. It became mine. I kept the desk I'd built, the shelves I installed, the walls I painted. The only thing missing was the framed photo I'd taken down the night of her phone call. It never went back up. About 5 months after the divorce, I met someone named Julia. I told her everything before our third date. Not because she asked, because I wasn't carrying secrets into another relationship. When I finished, she looked at me for a second and smiled. So, your wife called you from Europe to say she met another guy? That's about the size of it. And she expected you to wait while she figured out who she wanted. Apparently, Julia shook her head. I would have filed too. I laughed for the first time talking about the divorce. Good, she smiled. I don't compete for someone's attention. Neither did I anymore. The trust didn't magically come back. If Julia's plans changed suddenly, I'd notice. If she became distant, I'd ask questions instead of making excuses. She understood why. Healing wasn't pretending the past never happened. It was learning from it without letting it control the future. About a month later, I received one final email from Mia. It wasn't angry. There were no excuses. Just one sentence that stood out. Losing you made me realize I confused excitement with happiness, and I paid for it. I read it once. Then I deleted it. No reply, no closure conversation, no reopening old wounds. Because closure had already happened the night she looked into a camera and said, I met someone while traveling. We're in a situationship. Everything after that was just consequences. People sometimes ask if I regret filing for divorce so quickly. The answer has never changed. No, I didn't end my marriage because my wife met another man. I ended it because she expected me to stand still while she decided whether I was worth keeping. I refused to become someone's backup plan. She wanted the freedom to explore another relationship. I gave her that freedom. I just refused to stay married while she did it. And that's a decision I'll never regret. Thank you for watching.